The legendary Pokemon Dialga and Palkia are coming back to Pokemon GO's raid battles for the next 2 weeks, and I actually think it's important that you do not skip out on these raids. And I'm going to be talking about why that is in this video, as well as giving you a comprehensive updated raid guide so that you are best prepared. Alright, what's happening everyone? Jinsula here with a brand new Pokemon GO video. I hope your day is going really well, and let's get right into it. So, when it comes to Pokemon GO's power creep, more specifically when it comes to certain Pokemon getting released and they are basically much better versions of previous Pokemon, there is no better case than both Dialga and Palkia. These are both legendary Pokemon that at one point were considered the top tier Pokemon when it comes to legendaries, specifically in the Master League and with raid battles, but both of these Pokemon have recently been outclassed by other Pokemon with almost the same name, specifically Origin Form Dialga and Origin Form Palkia. Both of these Pokemon have essentially become updated versions of both Dialga and Palkia, respectively. And because of that, both of these raid bosses are no longer considered high priority by some of the top players. However, I think that is a huge mistake, and some of the most savvy Pokemon GO players will still spend their raid passes on both Dialga and Palkia raids. And there is one specific reason for that, which I will get into later. But first, let's actually go over the counters and all the strategies for how you could take down both Dialga and Palkia in raids. Let's start this off by talking about what is arguably the more popular one out of the two, which is Dialga. This is a legendary Pokemon with both the Steel and Dragon typing, which only gives it 2 weaknesses, and that's ground type attacks and fighting type attacks. But this also gives Dialga a plethora of various resistances. You will want to avoid Pokemon with grass type, poison type, bug type, electric type, flying type, normal type, psychic type, rock type, steel type, and water type attacks, because those are going to be ineffective. Now, if you want to get perfect IVs of Dialga, you will want to come across one that is 2307 and 2884 if it's weather boosted. Dialga is going to be weather boosted by snowy weather and windy weather. Now, if you want to secure the win up against Dialga raids, you will want a raid group that consists of 5 trainers that are at least level 30, with all of their Pokemon being at least level 30. And if you want to challenge yourself, you can duo Dialga raids. Just make sure you have the absolute best counters and both you and your raid mate are at least level 40. Dialga is a little bit trickier compared to most raid bosses. It's definitely going to require you to have the most optimal team, as well as the most optimal environment, like friendship bonuses as well as weather boosts. Now, let's go over the best counters for Dialga. Basically, you will want to go with your absolute best ground types, along with a fighting type Mega Evolution in Mega Lucario. It is probably the hardest hitting Mega Evolution when it comes to this raid boss, and even though it may not synergize with ground types that your raid mates might be bringing, it will still deal an incredible amount of damage to kind of make up for it. But another great option is, of course, Primal Groudon, because that is the absolute best ground type in the game, and if you do not have a good Mega Lucario, that is always going to be the next best option. And then when it comes to non-Mega Evolution Pokemon to bring to Dialga raids, they of course include Shadow Groudon, which is a Pokemon that is an absolute hard-hitting Pokemon up against this raid, and then of course Shadow Excadrill with ground type attacks. Both of these Pokemon are really great Pokemon up against this raid boss, and I do recognize that they are incredibly expensive and kind of inaccessible at the moment. So you could also go with regular versions of these Pokemon, not necessarily their shadows, but also regular Lucario is a really great option. Alright, next let's talk about Palkia, which is going to have a very different group of counters for you to use. Palkia is a legendary Pokemon with the water typing and dragon typing, and this only gives it 2 weaknesses, which is going to be dragon type and fairy type attacks. But this also means it's going to have way less resistances compared to Dialga. It's going to be resistant to fire, water, and steel type attacks, so obviously avoid bringing any Pokemon with those moves. And when it comes to perfect IVs for Palkia, it's also going to be slightly smaller than Dialga. It's going to be 2280 for non-weather boosted and 2850 if it is weather boosted. And speaking speaking of which, Palkia is going to be weather boosted by rainy weather and windy weather. And if you want to secure the win against Palkia, it's basically the same number of trainers, 5 trainers that are at least level 30, and all of their Pokemon are also level 30 at least. And if you want to challenge yourself, of course, you can duo this Pokemon, just make sure you and your raid mate are both level 40 and you're bringing the best counters. You don't necessarily need the absolute best environment just like Dialga, but it is still going to be a little bit more difficult compared to most other raid bosses, so do be prepared. And when it comes to the absolute best counters for Palkia, like I mentioned, they're going to be completely different from Dialga. Basically, you will want to go with Mega Rayquaza as your top Pokemon. That is going to be the hardest hitting Pokemon against Palkia. And then the second greatest option when it comes to Dragon-type raid damage is always going to be Mega Garchomp. And then when it comes to non-Mega Evolution Pokemon, Eternatus is going to be the absolute best, considering it is the hardest hitting Dragon-type currently in the game that's not a Mega Evolution. And then Shadow Palkia is actually going to be another great option, as well as Origin Form Palkia. Now, if you do not have any of these that are fully maxed out or with high IVs, you could still go with regular Garchomp with Dragon-type attacks, as well as Haxorus with Dragon-type attacks. Both of those are really great options up against Palkia. But do keep in mind that Palkia does have Dragon-type charge attacks, which could one-shot most of these counters, so be prepared to use Revives if you're not going to be going at it with a full raid lobby. Alright, so what is the main reason why you should be raiding both of these Pokemon? What is the point of having a team set up with all of these top counters so that you could take them down with ease? Well, it's simply because of the adventure effects for both Origin Form Dialga and Origin Form Palkia. They require candies of Dialga and Palkia, and they are actually the same candies that you could get right now with these Dialga and Palkia legendary raids. So that should tell you that if you want to use these adventure effects, you need to stock up on candies for both Dialga and Palkia. And let me tell you, when it comes to adventure effect moves, these are actually some of the best in the game. Specifically with Dialga and Roar of Time, that is how you can extend the duration of premium items like the Daily Adventure Incense. And then when it comes to Spatial Rend, this is actually probably one of the best adventure effects you can have when it comes to special events like the upcoming Pokemon GO Tour, or with Pokemon GO Fest, and even with monthly events like Community Days. This is one of those adventure effects that I actually use quite often, but I do find myself running out of Palkia candies, and of course, I don't end up having Palkia candies to power up my best Origin Form Palkia, which actually is really good for raid battles and PvP and all that sort of stuff. So I really do think this is a very key factor for why you should actually do raids for both Dialga and Palkia, even though they may not necessarily be considered top tier. Now, of course, you could save those raid passes and do Origin Form Palkia and Origin Form Dialga raids because you're essentially going to get the best of both worlds. You might end up getting yourself a high IV of both of these Pokemon, which could be very useful for raids and the Master League in PvP. I totally get that. And of course, you're going to be getting candies as well. But I think this is a great opportunity for you to stock up on candies because we don't know when Dialga and Palkia, specifically their origin forms, are going to be back in raid battles. It could be very soon, which we know of with the Road to Kalos event, but that's essentially only going to be 1 or 2 days. And right now, with the next 2 weeks having both of these legendary raid bosses, you could stock up on candies now, and then later just focus on getting IVs and even more candies for both of these adventure effect moves. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I know there's going to be some players out there who will say it's still not worth spending your raid passes on both of these Pokemon. Totally understand the power creep argument. It is essentially a thing where these Pokemon at one point were considered future-proof, but because of Spatial Rend and because of Roar Time, their origin form versions are just so much better. And yeah, that is kind of unfortunate, but still, I think these are very important raids. And even so, if you do not have yourself a good Origin Form Dialga, for example, just having a 100% IV regular Dialga that's fully maxed out is still going to do wonders within the Go Battle League. So yeah, that is all stuff you should consider, and I really do think that for a majority of players, they should still be raiding both of these Pokemon. That's just my own personal opinion. But in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Definitely share your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about down below. Do you agree that both of these Pokemon are still essential for you to raid, or do you feel like you're going to be skipping these out, saving your raid passes for the Road to Kalos event? Definitely share those thoughts. I would definitely like to know, and yeah, let's have a great discussion. And of course, if you ended up enjoying this video and you want to support my channel, the best way you could do that is of course by hitting that like button, and subscribe as well if it's your first time here, and also turn on that notification bell so you know exactly when I upload videos. Also, check out the links in the description below. One of them is to my Patreon page. That's another really great way you could support my channel. And if you decide to do that, if you decide to become a paid Patreon member, I'm going to add you to my Pokemon Go friends list. So for all the good stuff in the game that you could do with your friends, if you want to play Pokemon Go with me, do consider joining my Patreon. And also check out my Etsy store, because that's the side hustle that I'm doing outside of YouTube. It's a really great way for you to support the channel and also pick up something that you might really like, especially if you're a fan of anime and K-pop. Those are the things that I'm creating a lot of merch for, so yeah, go and check it out. And with all that said, that's going to be it for this video. Sorry for the big word salad at the end there, but yeah. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself today, and I'll catch you in the next video.